Yeah, a lot of people, you know.
Understood. Folks, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Trailer Park Show. We are very glad and honored that we are here. It is the July 3rd. It's the pre-4th of July celebration of the Trailer Park Show. Normally we have an intro that we do, but we had some little technical difficulties on getting everything set up, so we wanted to do a fresh live jump to the program. Today is a very special program for me because I've worked with all three individuals here at the table with here, and it's the stuff that you guys do in the community is very powerful, and as a one-time single father, trying to be a man and trying to raise a child to be responsible and whatnot. What you guys are providing for in the community and helping in helping other people who need that leg up and that hand up to go ahead and make sure that they can become responsible adults, responsible men. It is something that I think is very needed in Austin in general and in Travis County, and we wanted to have this opportunity to talk a little bit about what they're doing here to help men become men, as we mentioned on our Facebook post on the Trailer Park Show. So we want to introduce everybody here that's here with us. Across from me, we have Mike Lee, who the man with the shades and the hat. He's our Travis County Republican Party Outreach Director. He's also the president of the Austin Area Republican
Austin Area
MLK Association.
MLK Association.
And also the host of Right Talk with Mike Lee. We also have Dr. Robert Muhammad, who is an educator himself. Yes. Is also a member of the Nation of Islam and has an organization and works in the community helping men do better and to rise from where the current situation is. And of course we have Pastor Joshua Banks as the man I like to call Bishop, because he's promoted me to a very special position which we will leave alone. But we have Joshua Banks, who is the communications director, I believe.
Public relations director. Yes, sir, with the Manami.
With the Manami, he's also a member of IDADS and also the main man currently behind or the face of the Men Talk experience, which we will be talking about in a little bit throughout the hour. And of course, there's me. So I've got to say that we always talk politics here. This has always been like a really big show about politics, but we always do general talk, and we always talk about how people can help people. And like I said before, I've worked with both of you guys on different situations and on different occasions, and being able to have people out there helping other men to do more and to not only help themselves but help out their families is a very big portion. This is very, very important to me. It's very important aspect of life. And I want to start with you, Dr. Mohammed, about some of the programs that you've been working on. And the reason why I bring this up is because on the 24th of June, I believe, which was on a Saturday, you had an event over at the Millennium Youth Entertainment Complex.
Yes, sir.
Called Real Talk, Real Talk Action, or Real Talk Real Action.
Yes, sir.
Which is called Making Our Communities Great Again.
Yes, sir.
And if you can, tell us a little bit about it, because it was publicized on Facebook, but I didn't get to see a lot more other people talking about it.
Yes, sir.
As the way they should.
Yes, sir. Well, it's the brainchild of one of our brothers here in the city of Austin by the name of Durs Muhammad. He's in charge of the actual development and the training of the men who belong to the Nation of Islam here at our local mosque. And so he and I sat down and we talked about having a men's meeting to focus on, there's this theme in our community called real talk.
Right.
So we decided that there's too much talking and not enough action. And so if you look at the flyer, it says real talk, but talk is slashed out, right, and it says action. And so the meeting, it was our goal for it to be like a training seminar or a training session that would deal with various aspects of things that we felt were needed among the male population in our community. And so when you go back and look at some of the highlights, we talked about entrepreneurship, of course. We talked about self-defense and defending our women, our children, ourselves. We talked about making our communities decent and safe places to live to that end. And we also talked about, and we demonstrated some self-defense. And we talked about the power of images.
Right.
So you'll see some of the highlights where some of the young men are being taught how to tie ties, when and how to wear ties. Also, as a part of that, this one was very key to me, is that we had a session where we taught men how to smile at one another.
Right.
So here you have a room of it was approximately 80 black men and Pokey. There was present, and we talked about the power of smiling and physically and also spiritually, what it releases into the atmosphere. And then we practiced actually standing in front of one another and smiling. Right. Quite often in our community, you see this what they call this face mean mugging. Right. Trying to be hard and stone face, poker face in front of one another. But the whole goal, part of the goal, I would say, is for us to understand we're not enemies of one another, that we're actually brothers of one another, and that once we start looking at one another as brothers, then our actions that proceeded forth from that thought will be actions of that would dictate that we are brothers and not that we are enemies of one another. So it's okay if I'm walking down the street and I see you, or I see my brother, or anyone for that matter, and I smile at them. So those are some of the things that we did during those sessions, and that was just the beginning. We now we're in the negotiations with a local church who one of their pastors were present and wants to involve the men in their church in the same type of session. And so we're going to do a session in the next couple of weeks with the church. And we also are going to have part 2 in August coming up. And so we're going to keep this thing going, and we hoping that we pray that we plan it properly so it grows, and that, not just black men, but we want to start with black men. Right. And that men from all over partake in this and benefit from what we are doing.
So are you looking at just within the community of East Austin, or are you looking at this as a citywide county?
Well, we're looking at all of Central Texas. There were men from San Antonio present. There were men from Killeen that were present. There were men from Houston that were present. So we just reached out to everyone that wanted to participate, and we came together on that day. And one of the things that we did, we gave everybody a wristband as they came in, and they were numbered. And we broke up the men into groups. And throughout the sessions, we would do certain things in groups. And then at the end, we came back together. We asked everybody to look at the number on their wristband, rip the wristband off, and we put our fist in the air and said we came in as one, and we were separated, but we had this training and we're going to leave as one. Right. And so you'll see some of the chants, we came in as one and we'll leave as one. And so, yes, we want men from all over to participate. So. Okay.
And if anybody wants to see a little bit more about the video, it's on the NOI Austin Facebook page. I've been watching this the video, not the audio, not listening to the audio about what's being shown, and I'm amazed at some of the techniques that they're showing people. I mean, when it comes to well, and you and I are educators, and so you get to see some of the techniques that we had to go through in order to defend ourselves without being overly physical, and being able to not only obviously protect one another, and you see the people learning how to dress, I guess, for success, and how to give that appearance of professionalism. One of the things that I was actually amazed with that portion of the video is that you had 2 young children.
Yes.
Who were dressed very nicely they had a vest, they had a tie. They were. It was like they were going to church.
Right.
But it wasn't church, obviously.
Right.
And is it something that your group or the group that you're with is trying to show this to start at an early age, as opposed to saying start when you're 19 or start when you're 18 when you get out of high school?
Well, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said the greatest thing that you can do in your youth is give yourself and your life over to God. And when people do that, normally we're in this age where we say, well, come as you are. Well, that's a reality. You have to come as you are. But after being affected by something new, something divine and something righteous, you don't stay in the same condition that you are from the time that you came. And so I'll say this: the Nation of Islam is known for its work with men. When you can go back to the days of Cassius Clay. He was loud, he was brash, he was confident. Some say arrogant, but when he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he became Muhammad Ali. Malcolm Little was dibbling and dabbling in a little bit of crime, a little bit of pimping. He was as he called himself, a two-bit hustler. But when he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he became Malcolm X, and he affected men, women, and children all throughout the country, throughout the world. And so, Ford is known for making trucks. GMC is known for making vehicles, but the Nation of Islam is known for making men that have a militant posture. And with that exercise, we wanted to debunk this idea that you can't judge a book by its cover. Well, the question is, what do you judge a book by? Right. In order for you to be attracted to that book, to pick that book up, to give that book an opportunity, there has to be a great design that attracts your attention with a great title. And so let's be honest. Let's be, and that's what we wanted to do, be honest. If you see this young man suited, dressed nice, and he comes to your door and he rings your doorbell and he has a sales pitch for you, you're more willing to listen than the young man that's not dressed with his pants hanging down and other images that we see. And so we wanted to debunk that the images that we display are extremely important. And that's part of the problem, is that the images that we see of black men and black males in our community and in our societies are not images that bring forth, that expands the realm of possibility for many of the men. Because when we were growing up in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, where we were segregated into communities, the fact that we lived among each other was not the evil part of segregation. The fact that we didn't have access and we couldn't go where we wanted to go and do what we wanted to do was the bad part. Well, in our communities, we knew pastors, we knew attorneys, we knew the teachers that taught at the schools, we knew the doctors, we knew everyone. Right. And so the images that we saw in our day-to-day walk, whether it was at church, whether it was at school, whether it was at the dentist's office, they were images of us. And so when we were given access to go where we wanted to go and spend our money where we wanted to spend, in integration, our communities began to divide, and those images became far and in between. And so, but the reason why those images are important is because it helps to expand the realm of possibility in a child's mind and in a male's mind. Because if he is an attorney, or if he's somebody successful, it doesn't have to be he could be a plumber, owning his own plumbing business. But if he's successful, he looks like me, he comes from where I come from, in my mind, the realm of possibility is expanded, because I'm saying subconsciously, if he did it, so can I. But if I'm seeing images that are this like the images that are displayed, our fight for social justice and justice, when we see so many black men being killed, and it's played over and over, social media, on news, and we're actually seeing them now get killed. And we're not just hearing about it. There are videos. Oh, yeah. What is that doing to the psyche of black male children that are growing up? Oh, yeah, definitely. And one of the things that we expressed during that Saturday was that among all of the species on the planet, there are male and females. But only among one species on the planet, and that's the human being, where the male can be considered, after reaching a certain point, a man. And so that's the whole goal. You better ask what you need to ask, because I keep talking to about 7:59.
I had something I want to jump in and interject. You mentioned, Robert, about debunking certain ideas and images. And I guess as director of outreach and engagement for the Travis County Republican Party, I've been involved in that kind of thing in a big way. I've been doing some things to try to change the thinking about what a Republican is. And in the course of doing this, I've had some interesting adventures. I run into you quite often. You and I work together on a few things. And it's put me, and I've dragged Gabe and some others, James Dickey and others, into situations that they otherwise would not be in, such as meetings at the Victory Grill. But I believe these kinds of things are necessary in order to try to make the kind of progress and create possibilities to improve the black community. Because, you know, I'm all about, I say what's good for the black community is good for the community. Right. That's my thing. Right. And I just believe that. In order to try to make that reality come about, I have to engage people in doing things that are out of the ordinary for them. And it's out of the ordinary for other people on the east side to see. For example, we had the MLK kickoff meeting at Sam's Barbecue over there on 12th Street, the barbecue place over there. You know, that's not a place that's usually thought of as where conservatives might meet. But to me, it was perfect. We were going somewhere where we actually supposedly have no business going. But one of the things I've tried to change on several levels is the idea that we have horns and that we hate people. And, you know, the bottom line is, and as a show I want to get you on, as a guy I want to get you on a show with for a reason, because there's a debate that I believe needs to happen. And you said something during one of my shows after you were on the show with me. You said, because you seek to try to improve the situation for black men, that doesn't mean you're trying to take anything away from anybody. You're just trying to improve a situation for a certain person, right. a certain group of people. Right. And I also had a thought about images. Because I became a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. That's what I did for too long. But I got that idea when I was a child. I was just watching TV and I saw Perry Mason. And he was walking around talking and doing what he did. And I thought, that looked pretty cool, you know. But it didn't occur to me that that's a white man doing it. I was just a kid. I was about maybe 8. But it was just a guy. It looked like what he was doing looked like fun to me. I said, I think I might want to try that. Since I can't be an astronaut and be the first person on the moon. I don't want to be the first black man on the moon. I want to be the first person there. And they could have left me there for all I care. But to me, it's when you look at things like images and things like that, I guess I wasn't too little to know about segregation and racism and all that, because I played on an all-white baseball team starting at age 5. But I just didn't look at it that way in terms of that's a white man doing that. It's just a guy doing it. And I kind of always looked at things like that. Looked at things even now as that's a human doing it. I've never got into the black-white thing, the hate, fear thing, because when I played baseball, it's just me and Timmy were the only black guys on the team. And the guy who was manager of the team, the white guy who was manager of the team, Jewish guy, he used to treat us just like his son. Bob would sometimes take his son to see his grandmother. He'd take us with him. When he was talking to Jake Sweeney about sponsoring, Jake Sweeney was the biggest car dealership in Cincinnati at the time. When he talked to Jake Sweeney about sponsoring the team, he took us with him. And I know that these are unusual experiences, but that's what happened to me. Right. So there's some stuff that I'm kind of missing that some people have. I just don't have it.
Well, in this area, I can say this in this aspect. I mean, with Austin that we've experienced, it has been a very diverse and very segregated group area. And because of the forcing of what's been going on within the community, it's had that effect. And so now we have to have situations like this where we have Robert, Muhammad, and Josh come in to talk about how to improve them, how to improve men in the community that they live in now. When at one time, like you had mentioned before, they were able to walk the walk and talk the talk. But now with integration, or I don't want to say with integration, but now with the way the forces of Austin have come into play here, you have to go back to square one and say, okay, this is how you do it. And one of the things I was going to ask was that it seems very important that what you're doing it should go with other individuals, like other groups, such as like with the Hispanic population, because we see that.
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned about another church asking, wanting to do something similar or doing another program. So is it a church in East Austin, or is it somewhere else outside of the?
The
outside
church
the
is
area?
actually in Pflugerville.
Really?
Yeah. And they're not asking for us to, a lot of times, and I've been in the Nation of Islam for now 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of times, because of the stigma, because of, the way the nation has been labeled, a lot of our people, our churches, our organizations, it's like they're walking on eggshells when they want to deal with us. But we had, and the reason I'm not mentioning the church is because we have not, we will finalize everything this week.
Okay.
And so, but their response was, we want to take exactly what you did, and we want you all to come and host that meeting with our men in our church. We don't need to augment it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to change anything. We want you guys to do exactly. So that in itself tells me that when the pastor was present, he didn't see anything that violated his faith principles. He didn't see anything that violated his belief. But what he saw was universal principles of truth and universal sciences that
can be applied.
That can be applied.
He's talking about
to any group.
He's talking about
any group, any
fundamentally
faith.
human stuff.
You look at it. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. Sound travels at 1,120 feet per second. So when we're dealing with the images and how important images, I see you before I hear anything that you say.
Right.
So for us not to teach our young men about how to present themselves and how important their images are is those. It may seem like something small, but it's very critical.
It is.
And so yeah, we hope that partnership with the church is that it actually sparks a new kind of relationship between, and we never have problems with churches that are growing and developing. The only individuals that kind of stay away from us are those that have found their niche in the community, and their membership is so large, so
Understood.
They don't want to lose members.
But
Understood on that part, and that's good. I mean, I like the fact that people are coming to you and asking to go ahead and do the same thing over and over again as duplication, because it's tried and true.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It's extremely important that we do what we are doing, and that the brothers and there's a part of the man in me that they do the things that they are doing as well, and that we come together and do things jointly at times, because there are more black males born each year than black females. But by the time that group reached the age of maturity, which is 18, there are more black females than there are black males, which means that we're dying at the rate of an endangered species. So the last time I was on this show, I think Don Zimmerman was on here, and we were talking about immigration. And one of the things that I mentioned was this documentary that I saw about these rogue elephants in South Africa, where they displaced the adults and killed many of the adults, and they took the young elephants and put them in Pellensburg Park and another park. And they found when they became teenagers that they were killing the endangered species of rhinoceros, and they were terrorizing those that came out to the safari, to the park. And that all of that changed when they took some of the older male bull elephants and put them back in the population. And just from them being present,
Right.
When they were absent, they tested their testosterone level. And their testosterone level was higher than normal at their age. But once they reintroduced the adult male elephants back into the society, their testosterone level reduced and their behavior changed.
They chilled out.
Biology told them that I have to defend, I have to protect, I have to do these things in among my family, but they didn't have the training and the development to do it. So one of the things that we had in the 30s, 40s, and 50s was that we had individuals, the scripture says, old men for counsel, young men for war, vice versa. But right now we're finding that there's a lack of old men for counsel. Right. So now we have these young soldiers and these young men in our community with high testosterone levels, and they are fearless now, but they don't have any guidance. So part of our appeal is for the OGs or the elders to come back into the community and properly guide these young men so that our community can go up. Right. And not flatline and go down.
So there's such a thing as nature.
Which is actually a great segue to Josh and what Josh is doing with IDADs and the man in me and the men talk. Absolutely. So if we can, I was going to tell us a little bit about what IDADs is. Not many people have actually heard that program.
Before I do that, I wanted to say, based on what Robert had talked about earlier, context is what we're missing in our community. And that's what we need to do, is build bridges between the old generation and the young generation, because again, you have these young soldiers and what they bring to the table is good and what they bring to the table is necessary. They're lacking the context, whereas to bring that warrior spirit to the table. I need you to be a soldier, but here's the context. Here's the arena I need you to fight. I need you to fight for your family. I need you to fight for your community. I need you to fight for your relationships. I need your aggression, but here's where I need you to direct it. I need you to direct it towards injustices. I need you to direct it towards places where you see the people are needy or hungry or weary. I need to see those energies directed in a place that actually promotes life rather than directing them in a place that takes away life. So I'm very moved by what you talked about, because again, context is what we need, and I think it's a great thing when a church can get past their linguistics and get to a place of we see truth rather than we see truth displayed the way we want it to be displayed, and get beyond the brands and really focus in on truth. You called me pastor earlier. I was a college minister, young adults minister for 7 years, and one of the things I realized is that we were a faith-forward movement many times. And that means whenever we did something, we started with our faith first. But not our faith in the context of the actions that we did, but our labels. Right. And whenever you start with a label-forward mentality rather than a truth-forward mentality, you'll always have nothing but division, because our labels will not mix. But if you can have a truth-forward mentality, you'll always have a connection, because truth has no language. Truth has no barriers. Truth is something that can be universal, and that's something that we can bond together on, is truth. So I wanted to talk about that and compliment you and commend your group on that. I think that's a beautiful thing that we're seeing in the community. IDADs. So I have the opportunity and the privilege to work for the Housing Authority. And the Housing Authority has partnered with the Man in Me and set up a program called IDADs. What IDADS is it's a program that goes into Housing Authority properties. It looks for fathers and father figures. And it's addressing this issue of fatherlessness in our communities. You look at every major statistic that involves poverty, that involves poor education, that involves lack of mentorship. There's an absent father somewhere in the picture. And so one of the beautiful things about President Mike Gerber over at HACA is that he saw this, and so he wanted to do something to address that problem, because he believed we should start doing something. There's women that live in these communities that are having babies, and we don't know where the father is, and he's not showing up anywhere. So we need to do something that we can do that's proactive to address this issue. And so he went to Isaac Rowe and the Man and Me organization and brought them in, because the Man and Me organization been around for 5 years, and its purpose was to strengthen, educate, and support men. So the Housing Authority partnered with Isaac Rowe and Man and Me to strengthen, educate, and support the men of the HACA community. And so IDADS is that partnership between the Man and Me and the Housing Authority, where we go out there and we look for fathers and father figures, and we go out there to train them. It's a 10-session program that we go through, and we teach them like communication skills, education, job readiness, all those things that get a man from a place of not being equipped to be the father that he knows he can be, and giving him the tools to work with to be that father, that father figure.
We actually have a gentleman over here that wants to ask a question. If you want to come on over, just come on over and let's go ahead and ask away.
I I'm a single father. I'm in housing. I just heard you say that. I was like, what do you got to offer? I'm ready for that, brother.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
Well, so what we do is it's a 10-session program, and we're going to be meeting at Booker T. Washington. It's going to be starting on July the 11th, if I'm not incorrect, but it'll be that Tuesday. So I may be off of my dates here, but give me a second. Gabe will verify for me.
Yeah, it's July
July the 11th is
the
when we'll be
Tuesday.
starting. We'll be meeting at the Booker T. Washington Center there on the BTW property. And the class is going to be one of those things where we talk about what you want to talk about. So one of the things we do whenever the guys come in is we do an entrance survey. And we let them fill out what kind of goals are you setting, what kind of things do you want to see for your own life as an individual, for your family's life. And we allow you to kind of tell us how to tailor this session and how to tailor the overall class so that we make sure we address the things that you as an individual are concerned about. And then we bring those resources to you. We'll go out and we'll bring somebody that can educate on business. We'll go out and bring somebody that can educate on jobs and things of that nature, communications, anger management, parenting skills, whatever. And one of the beautiful things is that we're able to give free computers to the HACA residents that go through the full program when they graduate. So there's also an incentive to be in the program. It's all about brotherhood. It's all about letting you as a man know that you're in this fight, but you're not in this fight alone. And I think one of the problems that we have in our community is we isolate ourselves whenever we get in pressure. We isolate ourselves whenever we get in situations where we really need to reach out to somebody else. And so rather than leave a person in that position by themselves, we have the opportunity to go out and say, brothers, come on in. We've got a place for you to go.
Man, that's awesome, brother. Hey, I will definitely be there on, what is that, on the 3rd?
Yeah, and I'll make
On
sure
the
you
11th?
get. I'll make sure you get my information. In fact, I can give this to you right here. But before I hand this to you, if you know anyone else that's in the same situation, I can be reached at 512-767-7737 or Joshua B. at hakanet.org. And there'll be more information. If you go to the HACA website, there'll be information there. It's free. It's an outreach for the men of the HACA properties. Give this to you right there, my friend. You got my number. You got my email. What was your name?
Donald.
Donald? Looking forward to seeing you, my
Most
friend.
definitely, I'll be there, brother.
I appreciate you.
Awesome. You gotta love those moments when they just like all of a sudden magic happens.
That was one of those moments. I was not expecting that to be like that, but you know that's the beauty of it is that there are so many people that are looking for something.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, especially with the IDADS program, is we have the opportunity to provide people with that something that they're looking for. We had a young dad who was there. He hadn't seen his son in over a year as because of an injury that he had to himself. And his mind had told him, I don't want my son to see me like this because my son will think I'm weak.
Oh yeah.
And so what happened is he came to the program, we worked with him, we talked to him, hey man, look, you got to go see your son. Your son just wants his father. That's all he wants. He's not looking for you to be something that you're not. He's looking for you to be there.
Right.
And so it took a while to get him there, but he finally got to the point where he trusted us, which is a big thing I want to emphasize that we're lacking in our community. Trust. We don't trust each other that the other person has my best interests at heart. And so it took a while to develop that relationship. And after some point, we finally convinced him, hey, reach out and talk to your son. So he reached out. He went and talked to his son. The guy walks his son to school now 3 days out of the week. And so a son that had a father that was not engaged now has a father that is engaged, and that just does wonders to a child.
Oh yeah. And I can share that story.
Yeah,
And I'll share it off camera here about the time with my daughter
sure.
when I was weak
Yeah,
and you couldn't and they saw it.
yeah,
And so it was one of those powerful moments that you
Absolutely.
had to create that. You had to be able to say no. It's all right.
It's all right.
Things are going to happen.
That leads us into the Men Talk experience.
Correct.
That's what
So,
we're talking about.
I did want to bring into the Men Talk because it's actually I wanted to say something real quick about the IDADS because I've gone to one of your meetings. And during the meeting that we had there, or that you had, we had a gentleman that came in and was asking for help, and it was just one of those things where just like we had Donald come in, he happened to see people there. They were talking. He asked what's going on, and right off the bat, he said, "This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to help out,
Yeah.
and this is what we can do for you." So
Yeah.
it was not necessarily a referral that came in, but they heard something that was going on, and they said, "I need help. What am I going to do or what can be done to help me take care
Absolutely.
of whatever problems that were going on?"
Yeah.
And he had some pretty serious stuff that was happening
Yeah.
at that time, and hopefully everything's going well with him. we won't go into what happened afterwards, but
Sure.
or whether or not he's in the program. But it was one of those things where just by talking about what can be done for them and how they can get a hand up, or with being able to become successful, it's just a powerful thing.
I will say this part. One of the things that's beautiful about our program is that I spend a lot of my time reaching out to other organizations to come and support the program. And so a lot of times there's so much red tape that people have to go through to get help. And one of the beautiful things about our program is that a lot of people are coming behind us and supporting us to where I can get people help quickly. And that's what gets people discouraged, is they try to get into a process and they feel like there's so many hoops they have to jump through to get what they need. The beautiful thing is that the community, as more and more people find out about the program, the community is coming behind and they're supporting the efforts. They're supporting the community that wants to get help. They're supporting IDADs, and I feel blessed to be in that position. I know the Man in Me as an organization is very thrilled to have that partnership with the Housing Authority.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's just not enough good things to say about it.
Now, we've got Mrs. Pokey and Pokey in there that are anxious to show part of this video. This was one of the facets of the Man in Me, and I'll talk a little bit about this one if it's okay with you guys. Where the Man in Me, it talks about building community. Not only with initially it was started off with men and their sons, but it expanded a little bit further just recently, where we had not only the men and their sons, but it's also the wives, the girlfriends, significant others, and the children as a whole. And through the Man in Me, they created the cookout where you come together and you're able to just sit down and talk, play games, have a competition, watch Josh, beat up on everybody in the and smoke everybody in the competitions. And for anybody that got to see some of the videos, there was some powerful stuff that went on in there. Which, by the way, congratulations on your basketball trophy that you earned, and on the great performance that you had on the strongman competition. That was just phenomenal stuff.
That was a low blow.
No, well,
That's a
we didn't say anything about the competition. We said it was a basketball competition. We didn't say anything out of the ordinary. Who was competing?
I think the oldest competitor I had was maybe 12 years old, but you know what? A win's a win. A win is a win.
A win's a win, but she was tough.
She was tough.
She was tough, and
She was tough.
Her family. Her family was her dad competed in the strongman competition and actually won.
That must be why he came out there and dusted us, because he was a little upset about what I did to his daughter. In all fairness, I gave her the trophy. I gave her the trophy. She went out there and gave me some. I was a little nervous, and I thought I was gonna go out there and smoke these kids, and no, she gave me a run for my money. So I gave her the trophy. It was nice. The fact that we have that many people showing up in Manor East Metropolitan Park, and not even everybody knows each other there, but the fact that many people believe in the idea of community, and believe in the idea of coming together. It's just mind-blowing. And something that I've been saying lately is one of the issues and one of the things we're working on as an organization, as an individual, is redefining community. Because so many times community is defined as proximity. So you're my neighbor because you live close to me. And that's not necessarily true.
Right.
And actually, that becomes the problem in many instances, is that people limit the sphere of influence to those that are closest to them. Sometimes you have to reach out based on a foundation of truth, like we discussed earlier, and allow someone else to be a part of your community that might not be within your immediate proximity, because they might have something to give you that you didn't have where you were raised.
Right.
And so the fact that all these people will show up on East Metropolitan Park to come together and get to know somebody that they didn't know, based on the foundation of love, and on the foundation of family, and on the foundation of let's just have some fun and let our hair down, it's awesome.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome.
And I've always been impressed with the way the events have been handled. Who comes in and who gets to participate, or who just comes in just to enjoy the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I love the fact that it is the quintessential definition of what unity is and what family is.
Yeah.
And we knew several people that were there, but we got to meet some new people that had never been there and were curious about what was going on, and we were just very happy with the fact that it was as successful as it was, and we're hoping that the Man in Me and everybody else involved in it will continue that event.
Absolutely.
And I think people are actually, but once people heard more about what was going on, I think there will be a bigger outreach.
Oh, yeah,
as to
absolutely.
how they can help out and just be a part of that whole event.
Shout outs to Isaac and Amber Rowe, founder of Man and Me. Shout outs to the Housing Authority. They sent out a whole bunch of volunteers to support. They made the load so easy, and just the partnership together, when we band together on a foundation of truth, it makes the load so much easier to bear.
Okay, now I gotta ask a question. Do you know who was taking all the pictures? Was he part of the housing authority?
I don't know if that was someone that Isaac had set up or not,
Okay,
but
I've got to say, I love the pictures, but the one that stuck out with me was me carrying a basket full of Big Red soda. I can't drink this stuff, but we were asked to, they're like, bring in some Big Red. I'm like, no problem. I'm carrying this laundry basket full. There was probably about 12 2-liter bottles, and the one picture that stood out was me carrying that thing. I'm like,
hey, and shout out to Gabriel for carrying that big heavy thing. Gabriel had one basket on one shoulder and was helping me carry another basket. I'm like, brother, how are you doing this?
It was all ganas. It was just because I can't drink this stuff, and I'm like, that's what we got to do.
See, and that's beautiful when you're willing to sweat to provide something for somebody else that you can't even partake of yourself.
It was just one of those interesting pictures. I'm just like, man. There was another one in there that I was standing in a sumo stance, pulling during the strongman competition.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys remember Street Fighter, the video game Street Fighter? Okay, so in Street Fighter 2, I think they had that sumo wrestler guy.
E Honda.
Yes. And I'm in there pulling that sucker, and they took a picture, and I'm squatting like him.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, God. I'm like.
That name might stick, That name might stick.
I'd imagine this coming Saturday it will be
Old Honda.
Old Honda. There we go.
Old Honda.
Oh man, you can call it G Honda if you want.
We call it whatever you want to call it. You want to talk about Saturday?
Yeah, I do. This is going to be one of the interesting things. I've got to let everybody know about what's going on. Full disclosure about what's happening. What we're going to be talking about next, I am going to be participating in.
Yes, sir.
And just so that people know that I do have a personal interest in what's going on with this coming event. So, from your perspective, one of the things that the Man in Me has done was create a conversation about how men think, as the way I like to call it. Which for the past few years has been called the Men Talk Experience.
Yes, sir.
So give us your insight about what the Men Talk Experience is.
The Men Talk Experience, the idea is you take a group of guys, you sit them in a room, you close the doors, and you let them out. And you just let them have the conversations that they have with each other amongst friends. And I think that the Men Talk Experience gave that conversation a platform. Because you always hear people talking about, especially the ladies, well, what do you guys talk about when y'all all together? And so we talk about you. But that's not just all that men do. Men talk about themselves. They talk about the things that they're going through, and depending on the level of comfort that the men have with each other, a brother might really let some stuff out in that kind of a setting that he wouldn't let out anywhere.
Yep.
And so the Men Talk Experience is kind of created to give people that experience of what do men think? How do they really think about certain things? What is the message that they will say to each other that they won't say to anybody else? And so it's kind of giving this air of vulnerability that people can kind of put their stuff out there.
So does it have a therapeutic aspect without having to pay a therapist?
Yes.
Yes.
I can safely say yes,
Yes.
because I have said some stuff that has been very, and look, there's Josh right there, just in case anybody wanted to see Josh in his muscles. I have had some very open conversations about my life, especially in the first Men Talk.
Is that the one that was at the Carver?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I
There
went
was
to
some
that.
very
I
open
went to that.
conversations that I had about life and how I was viewed certain things, being a single father at the time.
I still think the audience should have got some chicken.
We did. We actually got chicken.
Okay.
We got chicken. We got some chicken wings over there that were very big. It was very awesome. And it was just one of those things where you're able to say stuff about yourself that nobody really knows about.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel better. I mean, we had a gentleman by the name of Laird who was in there that we found out information about his life that was very shocking to us,
Yeah.
and very surprised that he actually said some of the stuff that he said,
Mm-hmm.
given how his life has been now.
Right.
So,
And I think from last year's Men Talk experience, one of the things that stood out the most was, and for those that are watching and were there last year, were that dialogue between Laird and O'Brien, where they were both on two opposing sides of a conversation, and they were going at it, and they were getting into it. And I think it's good for people to see that, because people start to understand there's one person that Laird is being represented by Laird's perspective, and then there's another person that's being represented by O'Brien's perspective. And that's one of the beautiful things about how we set it up this year, is that we've got all types of personalities, to where no matter where you sit on the spectrum, whether you come from the church world and that's your point of reference, or you don't come from that background at all, or you're dibbling or dabbling into that whole thing, either wherever you fit in the spectrum, there's going to be somebody up there that's going to give voice to your perspective, and you're going to actually have that chance to have that conversation with you without you having to get involved with it yourself. Let those guys have that conversation. You start picking up some things about how other people perceive your own thoughts.
right. And one of the things that came up was that this was designed primarily for women to get better insight on men.
Right.
You know, guys talking about stuff and talking about relationships, talking about dating, kids. You know, as my princess over here is here with us. But I've got to say this, and correct me if I'm wrong on this part. There was actually guy input that people actually took away from the guys that were in the studio that were watching and that were on the stage. Actually got some better insights about life in general that they probably never even thought about.
Yeah, a lot of times I find in many different situations, and I've been working with men for a number of years. There are times where we have a feeling or a thought that we don't know how to express in words. And one of the things that the Men Talk experience does for men is it gives that expression to some of the things that they were feeling and didn't know how to let out or didn't know how to communicate. And somebody will say something, and that brother will have that aha moment where now they see what it is they've been feeling. And not only do they give an expression to that thought, but then there's a conversation around that thought that somebody may not have known how to quite deal with, and that whole internal struggle that brother might be going through, it happens right there on the stage in front of his eyes with all kinds of opposing views and differing views, and they can get some clarity as to some of the things that they're going through themselves.
So where is the Men Talk experience going to happen this Saturday? Where is it going to be at?
Hanover's 2.0.
So it's going to be at a bar.
Hanover's 2.0. It's going to be very interesting this year, because I don't think there's been any
alcohol served at
alcohol
any other event?
involved in any of the other events. And
that's gonna be
It'll be who?
it's
That'll
going to
be
be huge,
interesting.
especially since the women kind of have a voice in the audience. The lovely C'est La Vie is going to be in the audience, and they'll be fielding some questions. Miss Griggs is going to be there. Chai Epiphany is going to be there. So there's going to be some voices in the audience that are going to represent the women's perspective. And so it'll be really, really interesting when you mix a conversation about dating, relationships, and men stuff with women in the audience, and maybe a little bit of alcohol, and they have microphones. It's going to be entertaining.
So will the people on the stage be able to drink alcohol?
I
That's gonna be a
don't
big
know.
question. Isaac, we need to find out. I got to make sure.
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, but I do know that there will be alcohol served in the building, and whatever lands in your water bottle, sir, is completely up to you.
You had a comment, Dr. Muhammad?
No, the talk about men on men, mentoring and peer, it reminds me of a scripture that talks about men sharpening men and steel sharpening steel. There has to be that bond of brotherhood, and you have to get it somewhere, and it has to come from different angles. It has to come from your peers. It has to come from the elders. It has to come, and it even comes from, I have a 5-year-old. I've got a 19-year-old, and I have a 5-year-old, but I have a 5-year-old male, and I find myself growing and developing based on my interaction with that 5-year-old boy of mine. And so it's very important that we exist, in this ecosystem that we call a community, and that we have opportunities to deal with one another, and that we have opportunities. So when you look at nature, to every physical law, there's a spiritual counterpart. So you and I talking and having a conversation, disagreeing or not disagreeing, it not only bonds us on a physical level, but also on a spiritual level. It also, see, when we talk about brother, the root word of brother is other. And so when I get, and the scripture says, that you pass from death to life when you love the what? The brotherhood. So what that's telling me that at that particular time period, the same type of energy, the same type of power that is present when life is being procreated, when life is being given life, that it exists when brothers are bonding together as well. And so we go from being a cell to being an organ, and then an organ system, and then an organism that you call a community. So these types of things are extremely important in our community, because otherwise we don't get opportunities to express ourselves to one another. There are a lot of things that we experience as men. There's a lot of things that you experience as a Latino male. There's a lot of things that we experience as African American or black males, but there are a lot of things that we experience as men in general, that maybe our spouses, our significant others don't understand. And then, as you said, maybe we don't understand, as a whole. Oh man, I didn't know. You're thinking about something, and as he said, something sparked something.
Right.
They had that aha moment, and that reminded me of that scripture, men sharpening men, like steel sharpens steel. And so,
and that's been said quite often in the meetings that we've had, and also with part of, actually, I think it was said last year in last year's Men Talk experience. That phrase was actually said, and I think you're the one that actually said it.
It's possible.
Men sharpening men, which is very powerful.
And it's a very constructive way to do it. It happens naturally.
Yeah.
It happens naturally, but when you can kind of control the environment in which it happens, we get tremendous benefit from it.
Right.
When we see things like gangs in our communities, we see churches in our communities, brotherhood organizations, fraternities in our community. But when we set the goal for it to be something positive and something constructive, then the desire feeds the will. So, but it's going to happen anyway. But when you want to get something productive out of it, that kind of brings the resources of the universe into play, and things start lining up based on our actions and our activities that proceeded forth from the thought that we had. So I think those things are very important.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to piggyback on something you said earlier, and again, this is the beauty of it, because you say something, it wakes something up in me. I say something, it wakes something up in you, and there's got to be a spiritual principle to the idea of the man carrying the seed. Now, because if a man carries the seed, but the man has never had that aha moment,
Right.
where he's never had something, a breath of life breathed into him,
Right.
then what type of a seed is he putting into the world?
That's right.
And so when a man is putting a seed into the world,
Right.
that seed needs to come from a place of life.
Right.
It needs to come from a man that's had that aha moment, that's had that revelatory moment, because as he imparts that seed based on the foundation of revelation, that gives that seed that much more of an opportunity to be grown, built up based on that revelation, rather than a man that sends that seed where there is darkness.
Right.
Because then that seed grows in that darkness.
Right. Because the seed will be sent forth naturally,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
But when you can decide what type of soil to put it in, whether it's fertile or whether it's poison or whether it's damaged, what type of sunlight it gets, what type of water it gets. Does it get water out of the faucet with the chlorine in it, or does it get natural water? So those things are very important. And I salute the man in me, and I salute the IDAS program and everything that I'm hearing. That some of it I didn't know, because we have to have certain avenues and certain programs that allow those things to happen among men, so that we don't express it in ways that do harm to ourselves, to our families, and to our communities. One of the things that I'm starting to see now, as the gentrification continues to make its way over east, is the dilapidation of our recreation centers and our parks. And young men at a certain age, this chemical called testosterone begins to flood the body, begins to produce more. And sometimes that chemical gives way to behavior that is seen as aggressive. Well, one of the things that we used to do is we utilize physical activity to stabilize and to balance that testosterone. But when I drive by certain parks now, I'm seeing grass this high, and social media is now taking the place for. We used to go to Highland Mall on Saturdays.
Right.
We used to go hang out at Highland Mall. And whether we got into a physical fight, whether we met a young lady, whatever we did, my parents used to give us $5. We should get on the bus. We used to have to pay to get on the bus, get the transfers. That was an experience. We get there, we go to food court, get a slice of pizza, go to the gold mine and spend the rest and go back home broke. But we met some people, we met some young ladies, we socialized.
Right.
But now, and we may have even gotten into a physical confrontation or almost got into a physical confrontation. Those things are natural in a society for growing adolescents. And so when you remove that and all of that's being done online, what are the young men that we will see in 10, 15, and 20 years if we don't have conduits like the Man and Me? If we don't have conduits like the Cookout, if we don't have conduits like the Real Action, the opportunity to develop and train, if we don't have fraternal organizations and within the higher learning institutions, churches, religious organizations and whatnot, when we don't have those things for males to express themselves and to get things off their chest, then what kind of seed is being put into the societies? And so I salute everybody for what they're doing, and I think that we have to become better at communicating what we do, because oftentimes we say that certain things are not being done, but when we do proper research, we find out things are being done. It's just not, the lines of communications are not meeting, but there's a lot being done in our communities. We just need to know, and we need to do better at who we're informing, because there are a lot of people looking for what we do. I'm certain there are groups that you deal with. There are groups that we have not dealt with. Yes, and you mentioned the women coming now. We have coming in August, there's an article that just appeared in our national periodical called the Final Call newspaper that you see the brothers on the corner with. But there was an article about the adoption of Walnut Creek Apartments, where we would go door to door on a regular basis, but we found that 97% of the doors that were answered by single women. And so we asked our sisters to get involved. And so Sister Christina, our student sister captain here in the city, they adopted the housing project and worked very closely with the management and Child Protective Services. And we've worked so close with them that they've been able to be called to help women in situations that their children were about to be taken, and we've gone in and been able to assist them, and their children their families were left intact. And so, because there are no men there.
Right.
And so, my hat's off, salute to all of the organizations that are doing something.
Well, folks, that's about all the time we have left. We will see you guys next week. How's that for my timing? Sometimes you get into those conversations and it's just like,
That's good.